Today is daf is Masech Avodah Zarah daf Ayin Hey number 75, and we're going to begin from daf Ayin Daled Amid Beis, about like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the bottom, by the words Rava. So here we come across the a hechsher. In other words, Rava ki hava mashad gulpe laharpanya. When Rava would send let's say, empty glasses to Harpanya. So he was afraid that if you send it with a goy, the goy is going to put his wine in there. And passel, by leaving your vessels with a goy, not just if you leave your wine with a goy, it's a shaila of kashrus, but leaving your dishes and your glasses with a goy could also be a problem because maybe he's going to put in yayin nesech into your glass. So what he would do is sachaf le apume, v'chosav le abitzrayhu. So that's where the picture comes in. He would put it in a bag upside down, seal the bag from on top. So it had, like, according to Rashi, like a double seal over here, because I understand that he glued it on the bottom, by the mouth of the glass, and so it was connected it was connected to the bag by two ends, basically, and therefore he had like a double seal, so to speak, that protected him. He would know that if the guy tampered with it, he would know that this vessel is no good to be used. It's treif. Ksavar, because he held kol davar shemachnisim likiyam, any type of vessel that you basically store wine for a long period of time, afilu lefisha, even if you give it to a guy to watch for just a period of time, you give it to him for a little bit of time, and you don't watch the guy, Gazur Rabbanan, the Rabbanan said that's no good, because perhaps the guy would take the vessel and put his wine in there. Then we learned B'meh ben Agvam. We learned in the Mishnah that a wine press, you have to do nigov. Nigov means to dry it out. So how do you dry something out? So Rav Ama, we explained already yesterday, but Rav says b'mayim, you dry it out with water, which makes no sense. Rabba Babachona Ama be'efe, you spread ashes onto the wine press, and then it becomes kosher. Says the Gemara, Rav Ama b'mayim. That means Rav says you pour water on the wine press, and then it's kosher. B'mayim v'loy be'efer, using water and not ashes. I mean, what is water going to do? As we said yesterday, if you have a wine press like this one, and you want to kosher it because the guy used it, or the guy, so just by pouring ashes on it, it's going to become kosher. And Rabba Babachana be'efa v'loy b'mayim. Ella, says the Gemara, you need to use both. Rav Ama, we go to Daf Ayin Hey on Aleph. Rav says you use b'mayim, water. V'hu adin le'efer. Then you put ashes. Rabba Babachana Ama le'efer, ashes. V'hu adin le'mayim. You need both, ashes and water. How does it work? V'loy pligi, it's not an argument. Ha beritivsa. If the wine press has moisture to it, so it's not a totally dry wine press. So then you first put ashes to dry it out, and then you put water, and then you hose it down with water. I don't know, ashes maybe like sucks out the juice that's in the wall of the pitch. But if it's a dry wine press, then you first put the water, and then you put ashes. And obviously, you're not going to leave it there with ashes. You're probably going to put water afterwards. Itmar, we learned Bei Rav, Mishmeid Rav, Omri, and the yeshiva of Rav, in the name of Rav, they said Tarti Tla. Sometimes you do 2 steps, and sometimes you do 3 steps. So if it's a moist, let's say it has a little moisture in the wine press because of the pitch, then you use 2 steps. First, you put ashes, and then you put water. But if it's totally dry wine press, then you have to have 3 steps. First, you put water, then you put ashes, and then you put water again. So then it will be 3 steps. Shmuel says, Tlas Dalid. There's 3 steps and 4 steps. And what does it mean? If three steps, it means if it's moist. If it's moist, you do ashes, water, and ashes. But and even though you're going to put wine to take away the ashes, you mean you just end it off with ashes, that last step we're not counting because obviously that's not the hechsher. That's if you want to use the wine press, you want it clean. So we're not going to count last. But dalid would means if it's dry. And means if it's dry, according to Shmuel, you have to do the process twice. Water, ashes, water, ashes. That's it. Besuri Masnehachi. This is the way the version of the machlekes between Rav and Shmuel was in Surah. But Pumpadisa Masnehachi and Pumpadisa they had it in a different version. Bei Rav Am Mishmei Rav plus Dalit. By a dry, you do three steps. By a moist, you do 4 steps. Shmuel Amma Shmuel says Dalit Vehe. There are 4 steps if it's dry and 5 steps if it's moist, which is 1 step more. V'lai pligi. That means Pumbedisa was not arguing on the Surah's version. It's just that in Pumbedisa, they added the extra step of water, the last water, before you use it, you want to clean away the ashes. So that's why they added an extra step. But the bottom line is basically you have to, if you want to use for the most part, if you want to use a wine press, that was just had pitch in there, right? And the pitch was the goyim used to put in their pitch. They used to put a little wine to neutralize the smell of the pitch. So and then that's how they manufactured it. So if he wanted to use it, he had to do this process of nigov, which means he would put water, then ashes, then water, then ashes. Okay, now the Gemara asks a question. Once we're dealing with hechsher, so the Gemara is asking a question. Boyamine mirababo hani gurgi d'armai mayu. Gurgi d'armai are, let's call that nets. Here we go. Here we go. Gurgi d'armanoi are like these wicker baskets. What do you need a wicker basket? That holds the grapes in place, so it doesn't spread all over the place when you press it down. So these wicker baskets, so the Gemara says, how do you kasha them? Amalei, so they asked the question from Rabbi Bo. For Rabbi Bo said, I have a brisa that tells you how to kasha them in another topic, and you'll apply it to Yayin Esech. Amalei Rabbi Bo Tenisu. I have a brisa that says, Harei Shahoya Gitav Ubeispadav Tameim. If you have your olive press is a bad, and gas is a wine press. If they had tmeim, they had tame wine in there or tame oil, and you want to now machshir it to be able to use to create tahar oil or tahar wine, right? So similar idea, because there's wine and oil absorbed into the walls of the wine press. So how do you kasher it? Ubikesh lasis and betahara, and you want to make it a pure wine press. So the Mishnah says, Hadapim v'hadashim balulavim. Dapim are the wine press had the wine press had a board, it had a bottom board, and they had wicker baskets, and they also had brooms to sweep up some of the grapes that did get away. So all these things, if you want to kasher them, madichen, all you need to do is hose it down with water. This brisa holds you don't have to do nigov. And the reason is because anyway it was used for cold. So just hose it down and that's fine. Because the whole wine press business is cold. It's a cold, so it doesn't bring out what's ever absorbed in the walls of the wine press. So this brisa holds, all you got to do is wash it down. Vo'a kolin. But what about the nets, the wicker baskets, shel nitzarim, that's made of palm branches, v'shel bitzbutz, or if it's made of hemp, then you have to do, if you want to kasher them, to make a tar, menagvam, you have to do nigov, again with the ashes. V'shel shipa, if it's made of bulrush, or v'shel gemi of reeds, so then it absorbs so much, it's very hard to kasher it. So what do? Miyashnun yud beis chodesh. Leave it for 12 months, don't do anything with it, and whatever is absorbed in the walls of this wicker basket made of bulrush or reeds will eventually be spoiled, and then that will make it kosher. again. It will make it tar. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Menicha megas legas." You don't have to, you leave it for 12 months from one wine season, from one pressing season to the other wine pressing season. Umibad lebad, from one olive pressing season to another olive pressing season. Presumably, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel is saying that you leave it for a year. The season of pressing comes once a year. So therefore, you leave it for a year in order to kasher. So the Gemara asks, Hainu Tanakama, what's Rav Shimon ben Gamliel adding onto the Tanakama? Tanakama also said you leave it for 12 months. Answers the Gemara, Ika Banai, there's a big difference. Horfe va'afele. If sometimes the wine season comes early, let's say the grapes or the olives ripened early. So then, according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, it's less than 12 months. Sometimes va'afele. Sometimes it could be more than 12 months, according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, if it was delayed, if the ripening happened at a later time. It was slower. But according to the Tanakama, it's exactly 12 months. And Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, it depends on the season of the pressing. Says so basically, if you want to use this basket, according to the Mishnah is, according to the Brisa, you have to wait 12 months. Rabbi Yossi says, a rights of the tar miyad. Let's say somebody wants to make a tar right away. So then is magi'ilam, you purge it b'roischem with boiling water. We have it easy. We could always make a pot of boiling water with electric and put it up anywhere in the street. But it was a big thing then. But if you really want to do it, you make a pot of boiling water, like you kasher the vessels for Pesach. Or you scald it with the water that you use to cook olives. That's somehow a harsh water that will, bring out whatever is absorbed inside the walls. Says the Gemara, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel b'shum Rab Yossi Aimer, manichan tachat sinar. There's another way to do it. You could leave it under a pipe, shebeim of mekalchin, that the water is flowing, or b'mayim, or by a spring, shemeim of roitvim, that the water is rushing. I guess constant flow of water on it, non-stop, will kasher that basket. The kama, how long do you have to leave it under the water? Oina, a period of time. The Brisa doesn't say how long that period is, but in a minute it will say it. Now, the way that you kasher it with taharas to make it tar, that's what the way you make it kosher by yayin nesach. You want to make it a kosher wine press. That's the same way you do it with to make it a tahar wine press. Says the Gemara, Klap Ilaya, which way are you pointing to? Betaris Kaiminin. This Mishnah is a Masechta Taharis. It should say the reverse. Ella, Kederach Sha'amru Betaris, just like we mataher a wine press, the same hechsher that you use to mataher a wine press, to make it non-tameh, Kach Amru B'yayin Esech. So also we can mataher a goyish wine press to make it non-yayin esech, kosher. So again, the question that they ask Rabbi Bo, what about how do you deal with these wicker nets, baskets? So it depends what they're made out of. Sometimes you leave them from 12 months, or you do hagala, or you scald them, or you purge them with boiling water. That was the same way. Says the Gemara, Kama Oina, how long one of the ways to kasher it, just leave it under a faucet that has flowing waters and leave it for a period of time. How long do you have to leave it there? For a day or night. Rab Chana B'Shina v'Amrila Rab Chana B'Shina Rab Chana Rab Yochanan. Again, Rab Yochanan Chatzi Yom Chatzi Layla. You leave it for a half a day and a half a night. So according to are they arguing what Rabbi Yochanan said? It's not an argument. Everybody holds you should leave it under the faucet for 12 hours. If it's the solstice, so the whole daytime is 12 hours, the whole nighttime is 12 hours. So during the spring or the fall, so then you could leave it for an entire day of 12 hours or an entire night of 12 hours. But it's the middle of the summer or middle of the winter, so then you're going to leave it for a half a day and a half a night, a 6 hour, let's say in June time, you're going to leave it you're going to leave it for in the summertime. In the midwinter, you're going to leave it for 6 hours during the day and 6 hours at night, or some other calculation, but the main point is that it has to be under the faucet for 12 hours. Says the Gemara, another thing about kashrin. Amar Rav Yehuda, Hani Ravuki. These baskets that are for the sediment of the grapes, daramai of goyim. So these are like these type of baskets. Okay, there are three types of baskets that you could put the sediment in there. One is made of hair, human hair. One is made of wool, and one is made of flax. And if you buy it off goyim, in these times they really had to know hechsher things because you couldn't easily buy these things. They were really handmade. So Hani Revaki, these baskets of daramai, of goyim, demazia, if it's made of human hair, madichin, all you got to do is wash it down, and then it's kosher. The amra, if it's made of wool, it absorbs more. Menagvan, then you have to put it with ashes. The kitna, but if it's made out of flax, it absorbs even more. Miyashnon, you can't use it for 12 months. If it has knots, try to undo the knots when you kasher it. Hani dekule b'chaloi daramoy. These baskets and strainers of goyim. The chiti b'chavle detzori. They are plated with palm strips. So madichan, you wash them down. We go to on Amud Beis, the tzafse, if it's a type of another material. Gemi, Rashi says, lenagvan. Then you make it, you do nigov, which is ashes. The chitana, if it's made of flax, again, we're learning here that anything that's made of the material of flax, miyashnon, you got to make it, can't use it. Let it hang around for 1 year and then you could use it. The yisbe kitre, if it has knots in it, sharile, you should undo those knots. Says the Gemara, itma, we learned. Now here, this is what we're talking about over here in this picture. You have a picture of an Amaretz who's Tame, his hand is Tame, and he sticks his hand into the grapes and wine. What happens to the whole gas, the whole wine press? Is it become aser or not? Because did it make it or everything Tame? So we're going to learn a machlekes. One opinion is that it makes the whole thing Tame. And one opinion is it just makes his hand and the immediate grapes that are around his hand Tame, but not anything else. Now we're going to have to know why. So Itma we learned. Amaretz, who's Tame? Shahoshit Yadei Lagas, stuck his hand into a wine press. V'naga be'eshkoilis, and touched the grapes and the wine. Rebbe Chia, you have a machlekes Rebbe and Rebbe Chia. Chadama eshkol v'chos of voice of tamim. One says that everything is tame, the grapes and everything around it is tame. V'chol agas kula tahara, and everything else is tahar. The Chadama, and one said kol agas kula name tameya. Even the whole wine press, everything is tame. Says the Gemara. According to the opinion that says only what's around the hand is tame, but everything else is tahar. But shouldn't the liquid? That Gemara's question is: shouldn't the liquid extend and metame all the grapes, even and should be metame also the wine press, the walls of the wine press? Why did we learn something different? If he found a dead frog, let's say, on a millstone that was used for olives, it wouldn't be metama only wherever you find the frog. If there's water all around the millstone, hakol tami, then everything is tami. As you can see in the picture over here, here's a dead frog, but because there's water all around, so the whole millstone is tame because the water connects the tame of the frog to matame the whole millstone. So answers the Gemara, Hasam over there, loimasek loimidi. There's nothing interrupting it. So therefore, the frog was matame the water, which was matame the millstone. The Gemara says a strange thing. Mafstake ashkoilis. There are grapes that interrupt from where the hand is to where the wall of the grapes is. So there's grapes over here that interrupt the tumah. So it's only around the head that's tameh. Everything else is tahar. And they practically put it to halacha to Rabbi Yirmiyah, the Rabbanan paskin to Rabbi Yirmiyah that the grapes and only where his hand was is tameh, and the rest of the wine press is tahar. Now we're touching onto Tvilas Kalim, and that's how we're going to end the Masechta. Says the Mishnah, Halakeach kli tashmish min hagoyim. Someone buys a food utensil from a goy. For example, he bought a pot. So it's a pot food. Even if it's new, eshedarke lahatbil, yatbil. If it's something that you can put it in the mikvah, yatbil, because there's a mitzvah in the Torah, we're going to find where, that says that even if you buy a kosher keli from a guy, a food keli, a food utensil, you have to toivel it in the mikvah. It gets a kedusha when it comes into the possession of a Jew. But let's say it's not kosher, lahagil. So if it's something, let's say a pot, and the guy used it for his soup or something like that, and you want to make it kosher. So if it's something that you could purge with hot water, yagel, purge it with hot water. Lilabein bu'ur, if it's something that's used directly on the fire, then yalaben bu'ur, you have to use it directly on the fire. What's an example? Hashapud ba'askela belaben me'or. A shapud is a spit, like you can see in the picture over here. A spit is used directly on the fire, right? As you can see in the picture, and plus a grate it's directly under the fire. So there, you can't just put this into a pot of boiling water. You have to take a blowtorch, I guess, and that's the only way to you make it light up in fire to get out or burn away the traphus that's inside that's inside the absorbed spit and grate. Hasakin, if you have a cold knife, so shafa, all you have to do is polish it, vihi tahira, and then tahira doesn't mean it's tahar, it means then it's kosher. Tahar doesn't mean kosher, it means if the guy used the knife, let's say for traphus, but he used it for cold, so Jew who buys that knife, all he has to do is polish it, and then you could use it. Tana, we learned in the Brisa, every type of new vessel that you buy from a guy, you have to put it into a mikveh. Says the Gemara, Manohani Mili, how do I know that? Amaravad, Amakra, because the Pasuk says, Kol Davash Yavav Eish Taviva Eish, when the Jews brought back the Kli Midyon, they brought vessels from war, the Torah says, make them hechsher, and the Taher, and make them Tahar. The Torah says, besides being machsher the Kalim, you also have to add a tahara to it by putting it into the mikvah. It's not enough to kasher the kalim. Tana Bar Kapara says, I have another source. Torah says that if it's tamei, by through a dead body, you have to spray it with the paraduma. But I would think that every keli that you captured in war, you need to spray it with the paraduma waters. Talmud loy ma'ach. The Torah says not so fast, only chilik, not everything. And came out Talmud loy b'nei. So why does the Torah tell you that every keli has to be in waters of nida? Mayim shenida tevelos behem. Have saw that each. It's another pasuk that says that every keli that you bring back from war, you have to put it into a mikveh that has 40 saw. Now, itzrach lemikta v'tar, v'yitzrach lemikta b'meidida. You need both psukim to teach you that you have to toivel a keli that you buy from a guy. Ikos of v'tar, if the Torah just write v'tar, have a min v'tar koldu. All you do, maybe the Torah meant all you got to do is wash it down. And then you could use it. Kasav rachmana b'meinida. So the Torah says meinida. You have to use water that's 40 saw, which is where a nida, a human, can fit in there, which is a mikvah. You have to put it into a mikvah. V'kasav b'meinida. But if it would just say meinida, have a mina, I would think harav shemesh knida, that you're not allowed to use the vessel that you bought from a guy until the sun sets, because it's like a nida. Kasav rachmana v'tar. The Torah says v'tar la'alter, that when you have a kosher keli that you bought from a guy, after you put it into the mikvah, and you have to put it into the mikvah because it says meinida, v'tar, you could use it right away. You don't have to wait till sunset. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Abu, afila kelim kadoshim b'mashma. You have to even new kelim. Because that's the context that the Torah was talking about over there, that they kashered kalim that they got from the goyim, and yet, nevertheless, so that makes it brand new. Yet the Torah still required them to put it into the mikveh. Says the Gemara, if they had to put every keli that they got from goyim into the mikveh, even let's say a barber's scissors, would you have to put that into the mikveh? Amalei. So they answered Rav Sheshes Klei Suda Amurim B'Parsha. The Torah is discussing things that were used over the cooking in the fire. So that context of the Chumash talking about buying kalim from a goyim or getting kalim from a goyim was talking only by cooking kalim, not buying getting a scissors from a goy. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Vuah, Lo Yishana Mekuchem U'Kamay Shehoya, Avashu'ulun Loi. It's only if you bought a keli from a guy, you bought it from a store, you have to toivel it. But if you borrow a keli from a guy, or let's say you go to a hotel and you have a drink, obviously it's borrowed, so therefore you don't have to toivel it. Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef Zava Mana de Mardenu Magoy. Sava Lahadbila. He bought like a keli, a vessel that was made out of manure from a guy, and he thought you got to put that into the mikvah. Amalahim Rabbanu Yakashmei Ledim Farshale B'nei Rabbi Yochanan. I heard from Rabbi Yochanan Klei Matcha Samur Torah. The only things that require mikvah is if it's made out of metal. But if it's not made out of metal, you don't have to put it into the mikvah. Amar Rav Ashi said, Hani Klizuchuchas, but if it's glass, it's similar to metal. Since you could repair glass the same way you could repair metal, which means that if it breaks, you can melt it down and repair it. The same way you can melt down metal and repair that. So even glass is included in the mitzvah of being toivel kalim. So if you have to buy glassware, you have to toivel it. Kunya, let's say it's made out of earth, but you put it, you lined it with metal. Pligi barav achav ravina. Chadama kitchilase. One says it's you don't need to put it in the mikveh. It's made out of earth. Look at the end of it. Look at what you put inside, what you lined it with. And therefore, if it's lined with metal, you have to toivel it. The and the halacha is you have to toivel it. That's the halacha. If it's lined with metal, you have to toivel it. Concludes the Gemara. You told me that if you buy it, you don't have to toivel it. You have to toivel it. If you borrow it, you don't have to toivel it. Mashkantamai, what happens if a goy gives a yid for collateral? He gives him a metal keli, a pot, as collateral for a loan. Do you have to toivel it? Mar, the son of Rav Ashi, said, Abba Mishkan le goy kasa de kaspa. My father got as collateral from a goy a silver goblet. Va'atbale, and then he toivel it. V'ishte, and he started drinking with it. V'lo I didn't know why he did that. Imishum desava mashkana kizvina damin. When you get something as collateral for a loan, it's as if you bought it and you have to toivel it. Imishum the chazi legoy the daitel shkui. It could be that if it's just a collateral, you don't have to toivel it because the guy could always redeem it and get it back. But he saw that this guy was never going to pay back his loan, so Ravashi thought it's his glass, so he has to, his becher, and therefore he toiveled it. Okay, we'll continue discussing all about the Mishnah tomorrow. Okay.